Okay. Good morning to all our visitors from the US. A very good afternoon to Professor and all our guests from UK and Europe. Good evening to those of you who are logging in from India, South Asia, and a late good evening to any visitors from New Zealand and Australia. It gives me huge pleasure to welcome all of you to our sixth seminar in our 15 seminar series on the topic, The Digital Future for Business and Society, Perspectives on Artificial Intelligence Challenges and Opportunities. This seminar series is hosted jointly by Professor Yogesh Dwivedi from the Emerging Markets Research Center, Department of Business, School of Management, Swansea University, UK, and Professor Raman from Symbiosis Institute of Business Management, Pune, India. This seminar series is supported by the Center for Technology, Innovation, Management and Enterprise, the University of Kent, UK, Digital Marketing and Analytics Special Industry Group, Academy of Marketing, Grenoble IAE Graduate School of Management, a Grenoble INP school of the University of Grenoble Alps, Swansea iLab, Innovation Lab, Swansea University, the E-Business and E-Government Special Industry Group, British Academy of Management, and the UK Academy for Information Systems, UKS. This seminar series is inspired by various perspectives on artificial intelligence, AI for short, and its transformative potential presented in a recent perspective article by Dwivedi et al. 2019. AI undoubtedly offers a transformative potential for the augmentation and potential replacement of human tasks and activities in a wide range of industrial, intellectual, and even social applications. The pace of change for this new AI-driven age is staggering, with new breakthroughs in algorithmic machine learning, autonomous decision-making, and creating new opportunities for continued innovation. The impact of AI could be significant, with industries and sectors ranging from agriculture, finance, healthcare, manufacturing, retail, supply chain, logistics, and utilities, all potentially disrupted by the onset of AI technologies. The seminar series on the digital future for business and society, perspectives on AI challenges and opportunities, presents various perspectives from a number of leading expert speakers to highlight the opportunities and challenges posed by the rapid emergence of AI. Today's seminar is based on the subject, how is artificial intelligence used in sales? And allow me to introduce our eminent speaker for today, Dr. Kenneth Le Meunier-FitzHugh, Associate Professor in Marketing, Norwich Business School, University of East Anglia, UK. Dr. Kenneth holds a PhD from the University of Warwick in Marketing and Strategic Management, and he's currently an Associate Professor in Marketing at the University of East Anglia. Professor Kenneth has lectured at the London School of Economics, LSE, as all of you will know it, Cranfield School of Management, and St. Andrews University. Before that, he spent 20 years working in senior roles in a range of organizations, including Yamaha and Thorn EMI. Based on these experiences, his research focuses on improving the interface between sales and marketing, for which he has an international reputation. Professor Kenneth has published a number of articles in key academic journals, including the Journal of Business Research, the Journal of Industrial Marketing Management, European Journal of Marketing, and the Journal of Personal Selling and Sales Management. He has also published several noted books, including Achieving a Strategic Sales Focus, Contemporary Issues and Future Challenges. Marketing, a very short introduction, this book is due out next year, and he has co-edited the Oxford Handbook of Strategic Sales and Sales Management, all for Oxford University Press. Professor Kenneth has recently revised a best-selling textbook on selling and sales management, and his current research focuses on how AI technology is changing the world of sales and marketing. Professor Kenneth, welcome once again, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much for that very kind introduction. Yes, I did start to wonder who you were talking about at that point. But I think
I'm sure you're being humble, Professor.
Well, I think it's always when you're thinking about yourself, you sometimes forget the things you've been involved in over the years.
Indeed.
But anyway, welcome everybody. Thank you very much for taking your time out today to come and listen to this talk, and I do hope you'll enjoy it. I'm just going to start sharing the screen, and hopefully we will be okay. Right. I hope everybody can see that quite clearly. I just need to probably just put some background before we start this talk, just to say to you that I'm actually quite a late convert to AI in sales. I was thinking about it this morning that as Sandeep's mentioned, that I published a book in 2016 called Achieving a Strategic Sales Force. And looking at it, there is no mention of AI at all. There's a slight mention about CRM and using social media, but nothing about AI. And that was really a mark of change in the last 5 years. And I think that's really important to remember. This is still very much a new topic, and a topic which is going to change a lot over the next few years. But anyway, let me just take you through some of my thoughts around it. I was very honoured in 2019 to be invited to be part of a team where we did one of the early papers on the use of AI with some other leading academics from the USA. It's published in Journal of Personal Selling and Sales Management. And as part of it, we started to think about the rapid advancements in digital technologies, disrupting well-established sales practices, upturning well-known sales theories. And as we were writing the article and started to share our thoughts about it, we started to realize that the world was on its head, that sales was being turned around. Now, I have to say, I wasn't convinced to start with. I'm now very convinced in the reality of it. And I think that's probably the way a lot of people have gone, that we didn't even see 3-4 years ago what the changes were going to be. But anyway, what am I going to think about in this talk? Well, I'm going to actually think about how AI is changing the reality for sales, how it's been used to build sales, close sales, and the augmented and automated tasks. I'm going to think about and start discussing some of the benefits that are being observed. It's already there. It's already being used in relationships, gathering real-time sales intelligence, improving personal communication. And we're going to think about how many organizations, salespeople are struggling to adapt to the new reality. Even though it's been with us for a while now, it will grow important over the next 10 years. Maybe, I shouldn't say this, maybe it's a generational thing, maybe it's not. But we will find out over the next 10 years how much impact it's going to have. So I just need to be clear what I'm going to be talking about today. I want to just mention, what do I mean by sales? And I think that's really important. I'm not going to be talking about retail sales, but I'll explain more about that in a moment. I'm going to talk about how AI is used by sales and how the importance of its sales. And the last thing I want to think about is, what are the challenges of using AI? And there are challenges involved because, of course, it's about people losing authority, losing status, possibly, people misunderstanding the need for it, fear of what it can do, and fear for what sales leadership is going to look like going forward. And that's always an interesting debate. What's more important, an effective, well-focused sales leadership or well-focused professional salespeople? The feeling is always about leadership, and I think leadership play an important part in this. So, what do I mean by sales? I look at sales teams which operate in the B2B arena. I'm not going to be talking about retail sales today, so I'm not going to be talking about what Amazon does or any of these companies. I am just thinking about B2B selling. So that's companies which sell to retail stores, industrial companies, governmental bodies, hospitals, etc., etc. And it can be industrial products, or it can be consumer products. So it can be B2B to C, if you like. So that's what the group of people I'm looking at. So professional sales people, you could argue, but very much a big investment for most organizations. It doesn't matter if it's a consumer company or a purely industrial company. Another thing I just need to be clear of is some of the terminology I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the sales funnel, customer journey. There's lots of different words for it. And on the right-hand side, I hope you can see, is a funnel. And I just need you to be aware of some of the steps which are involved in the selling process. There's the prospecting, creating company awareness. There's qualifying, information search. There's defining needs, evaluation. There's negotiation. There's closing, and there's final evaluation. As we go through the talk, I'm going to be pointing to where AI is impacting upon this funnel and the customer journey. And that's really important, because I'm going to argue as we go through it that it impacts on almost every level of the funnel. And there's no getting away from that. So I just want to be clear by what I mean by sales. So if you're expecting a talk on retail sales and e-commerce, I'm afraid not today, but maybe another day. I'm also very quickly going to think about what is AI, because of course there is an argument that it's probably one of the misused terms currently being thrown about. So it's as I've said here, it's an umbrella term which covers different technologies such as natural language processing, developing machine and deep learning, computer vision. It is an umbrella term, and we are still yet to define what it means. So AI is not just automation. It should take things further by analyzing large data sets, not just crunching numbers, but actually analyzing these data sets. And it's always a question, what do I mean, or what's the definition of large data sets? I think it really depends who you talk to, but it could be trillions of data points. How does it provide insights, predictions, recommendations to facilitate decisions? Very important in sales. Insights. How do I see the market? What's the future looks like? And the other thing to remember is the function can use spoken language to understand and respond to various inquiries. In my world, and I'm not going to say the world is the same for everybody, but for me, in this world of sales, these are really important things to consider, because if you remember about sales, it's a two-way interaction between people. It is a communicator and a receiver. And some of you, I'm sure, can remember the model about communication, how we put barriers in that communication channel. So it's important to remember that in this talk. The other thing to think about it is that AI is all around us. Your mobile phone, your smartphone has so much AI technology, facial recognition, voice assistance, predictive text. It's here, it's all around us. Self-driving cars, manufacturing robots. What's Amazon, Netflix using it for? I said it's not about them. Even emails can be automatically written by AI. And maybe at this point, I want to just mention a very interesting story that happened to me a few months ago. I was away. I put up a little note saying I'm out of the office. And I noticed on that Monday morning, I had an email arrive from a company I didn't know saying, oh, we're trying to contact you. Can we help you? And of course, because I was away, I got a message saying out of the office. So I just ignored it. Then I noticed on Wednesday, another email from the same company saying, oh, we've been trying to contact you. How can we help you? I'm thinking, oh, that's interesting. And then on the Friday, a little email popped up saying, well, you're obviously not interested in us. If we can help you another time, please let us know. And I'm thinking, so that was a bot. That was not a human being. And that bot was unable, had not been programmed or not recognized an out of an office sign. So it can be damaging, because even if I wanted to talk to me, even if I was interested, by Friday, they said, Well, you're obviously not interested. We're going away. So of course I did go away. But anyway, the thing to remember, it's all around us. But what's the real issues? The real issues, for some, will be disruptive and it will be discontinuous. Salespeople will have to coexist with AI and many other technologies. There is no getting away from it. They're going to have to adapt to this new world. Organizations are going to have to adapt. Selling skills are going to have to adapt. Even buyers are going to have to adapt. For others, they see it as a time where sales forces will shrink, where salespeople will no longer be needed. You know, there's been quite a lot of debate, particularly in Europe and the USA, about how the middle sector of society is going to be impacted by AI. But I'm not sure about that argument yet. But I said, maybe in 10 years' time, we can re-adjourn and ask that question again and review where we are. So what are the real issues? Coexistence, growth, or shrinkage. And we need to be aware of those factors. But the other thing is, you know, the key changes. I've already mentioned my chatbot conversation or lack of chatbot conversation. But, you know, there is the idea of automation. There is automated signals, automated connections, automated things. You know, I said anything you do now, AI is going to be impacting you with some form of automation. There's also the more social media interactions. Now, I've always argued this is probably one of the most difficult areas for B2B. You know, most people now have been brought up in a Facebook, WhatsApp type generation. And most salespeople now interact with those things. And of course, for a business view, it's LinkedIn. So there is more social interaction and more social media interaction, but it's always the question mark about how can you use it? I think people want more than just case studies and white papers now. And one of the things I have argued at the time, that your sales force, your sales leaders need to be seen as industry experts. And I'm thinking AI will help that. Information gathered, not data, information. Now, that always is a bit of a grey area for me, because we could move into the ethical debates about what is information, what's knowledge. And some of the early talks I heard was that they were talking about a world where a AI function will be interrogating the World Wide Web, looking up people, finding out about them, getting information about them. And I moved into that area where I'm thinking, is this ethically right? And that's something we're going to have to think about, because once we find out about these people, how are organizations going to use them, or use that information, should I say? And then we have into maybe the possibility of abuse of power. But that's outside the scope, but something we will need to think about as we go on with using AI. So, how AI is currently being used in sales? Well, it's being used to build that pipeline that I mentioned early on. It is being used to help organizations locate new leads, both within their database and of course externally by trawling social media, trawling newspapers, finding out what companies are doing, finding out there's opportunities, finding out where it's going. It should and does help salespeople prioritize their activities, because it helps lead scoring. Because I said it's not just about number crunching, it's about analytics. It's about trying to identify what the most promising leads are. You know, the thing about sales is always trying to work out where you should put your energy. And unfortunately, not all customers are the same. But hopefully AI, or not hopefully, I think AI will help actually focus the minds and the attention of salespeople on leads which actually are going to be the most effective. It should help you grow relationships stronger, or relationships should grow stronger, should I say. You know, helping you capture information on data, response times, responding with the information they need, You know, I can remember many years ago when I was, I had less grey hair and I was on the road for the first time. You know, if a customer wanted to know about stock and etc., they used to ring the rep up and say, do you have it in stock? And then you moved into a world where, you know, the office would provide the information, and then it moved into a world where it was online. Well, in future, AI will hopefully be identifying those needs to make sure that trends and stock is never out of stock, because it'll be fulfilling the needs of the customers going forward. And also it can automate and augment tasks. It can take orders, it can process orders, it can prepare contacts, it will be able to do a lot more, but that doesn't take away the ability of people. People, I still think, are important relationships. People want to interact with people. We don't necessarily want to talk with a bot, but maybe if I'd been really clever, I'd have got some avatar going and giving this talk for me. And then I could be drinking my tea quite calmly in the corner and listening to it going ahead. But that's, you know, that's something we need to think about. So AI positively affects sales. A McKinsey study recently said that AI allows salespeople to spend 40% of less than their time of gathering information and processing sales. Call times can be decreased, increased leads and appointments. Now, why is this important? I think you need to go right back to the role of sales and think about the role of a salesperson. And studies in the past have identified that salespeople spend as little as 15% of their time actually in front of the customer. They're spending the rest of their time following up, identifying leads, driving there, you know, making the appointments, all the other tasks, only 15% of their time. And actually, another study showed that actually just getting somebody in front of a customer could cost you anything between $1,000 to $5,000 US, depending where they are. So it's a really, really big expense, a salesperson. And often to most organizations, they spend as much money on sales as they do on all the rest of their marketing activities together. So if you can use their time more effectively, that they don't have to spend time finding the leads are there for them, the prospects are better, all these things will help them, and they can spend more time doing what they do well, which is selling or finding out what customers' needs are. Well, actually, they shouldn't be finding out what customers' needs are, because if AI is doing its job, it should have probably identified all those leads and opportunities before the salesperson arrives. Now, you probably noticed in some of my language, I'm saying probably, maybe, whatever. I think that's because of that 10-year window, which I'm going to be interesting to watch, and it's going to be exciting. But maybe I'm pleased that I'm not a new salesperson in my mid-20s having to learn all this, or maybe in my 40s having to learn this, or wherever I might be in my life cycle. So it removes repetitive tasks, data consolidation, honing customer profiles, selecting new leads, which are ready for prospect, preparing leads, generating contact points. Now, I want to just tell you another story. Somebody will say I'm full of lots of different stories, but this is a company I worked with a few years ago, which actually worked in the construction business, and they worked on really big capital projects, you know, building airports, building dams, really big projects. And they've been using AI to help them identify which leads are worth following up. Because I must admit, because I hadn't come from a construction background, I hadn't realized that often for organizations to tender, just tender for an order, that they may have invested $100,000, maybe even $1 million. So they needed to know which one of those leads was going to give them the return, because it's about investment. And they developed a few years ago a very simple traffic light system: green, amber, red. You know, green, we know this customer, we've worked with them, we know the prospects, we know the possibility of winning it is high, therefore it's a green. If it got an amber, it had to go to sort of management board level to get approval to spend the money, and red was don't go anywhere near it. And that was about using resources well. Well, that's what AI is about. It's about using resources well. It's about ensuring that your resources are focused on what you need. And that will differ from every company. And maybe that's why I want to bring in my first health warning. One size doesn't necessarily fit all. And that's really important to remember, that different AI tools may be needed by different organizations. So, there's been lots of arguments about CRM systems in the past. Actually, do they offer you a return? AI systems are going to have to make sure they offer return because of the investment. Anyway, analytics. I mentioned analytics very early, but it is important that you remember it isn't about number crunches, it's about predictive forecasting. It's about thinking about the orders you won, lost, the size of the deal, the investment. What are these customers worth investing time and money in? There's lots of models. We talk about customer lifetime cycle, lifetime journeys. We talk about, the value of a customer. We talk about the cost of actually acquisition of a new customer. So forecasting can help with that. It gathers sales intelligence. It uses social media. It can keep its eyes and ears open 24/7 for relevant comments. But I said I do have a little bit of an ethical problem with that at the moment, and I'm yet to be made to feel totally reassured by that. But we will see. We will have to deal with it. Sales have had to deal with ethical dilemmas throughout history. So this is not new for them. It's just how you're going to guide that behavior. And then the last thing is about guiding sales behavior, about contact time, parameters of negotiation. AI can offer lots of benefits. It can offer lots of benefits because now, if I was really very intelligent, I have an AI system running in the background, making sure that I've discussed this and I've mentioned this and I've thought about this and I brought this point up. But my question is, how is that going to happen in the field? And that's yet to be answered for me totally. So how can AI be used? Well, prioritizing, which I've talked about, thinking about those funnels, thinking about the negotiation, the closing deals. It is, of course, can help with upselling and cross-selling. There's been lots of, this has been a regular one in sales literature about cross-selling, upselling. How do you deal with organizations which are divisionalized? So they deal with one division and not another division, all these sort of things. So, maybe AI will bring these divisions together because it can share information across the whole organization. It should be working to optimize margins when you're in negotiations. I'm not going to say that AI is the panacea to all problems, because it isn't. But it may help with better decision making. It may help with salespeople when they're doing tenders, quotes, and all the rest of it. Think about overall sales margins, identify some of the issues around it, identify the costs and the customer's propensity to purchase, the prices they've paid before, the prices that they sell it for, and then you can work back and work out the price that you maybe need to offer. Also forecasting. I touched on forecasting a few minutes ago, but forecasting is really important. Accurate forecasting, better use of resources, making sure things are in stock, not going out of stock because you're having to rely on a non-automated system. Decisions like that should and can be automated even today, and AI should help with that. So things to think about. Power of selling is moving away from individual towards machines. That, in theory, should remove the gut instinct out of decision making and make it more professional, whatever word you want to use. But actually, the reality is that sometimes that you do need salespeople because actually the buying signals are there and machines can't always pick them up. So that people, I think, play an important part. Also, the other thing about is people to struggle and understand and interpret and manage information gained from big data. Already seen that with CRM systems for some organizations, about using that data successfully. I think because we are people, we like to know how things work. I think there's always been a history, we like to look under the bonnet of our cars and see the engine. Even though we don't actually know anything about it, we like to make sure it's there, or at least understand it. And I think in leadership, that's a really important thing. I want to know what's happening under that bonnet I want to know what's going on. And I think that's really important. So, will AI replace salespeople? Well, there's little evidence to suggest that. Actually, you know, do organizations plan to replace their sales teams or sales manager AI? I doubt it. I said, because people like dealing with people. But there is no getting away that majority of companies are looking to adopt AI in the hope, need, requirement, wish, whatever, to increase their sales, and this will probably mean actually increasing their sales teams, because if you're more effective developing leads, you might need more people to go out and actually close the sales or actually go and talk to the people. The objective, as I say, of AI is to help salespeople work smarter, not be less of them. So help them focus their activities. So we can all have a more interesting life, a more industrious life. Organizations can prosper. And of course, if organizations prosper, the theory is that we will prosper as individuals as well. So what's the barriers? There is barriers to show that not all software at the moment is mobile device friendly. And that's something to think about if you're planning to introduce AI into your organization. Is it actually able to be used in the field? Thinking that salespeople may be using tablets or smartphones and not have access to laptops or desktops to run it effectively. The other thing is that not all organizational senior management actually understand and embrace the benefits of technology. They're as frightened of it as everybody else. You know, we do get frightened of technology. We've all been brought up with it, but actually there is a fear of it at times. And shall we say that some of the Hollywood films have not helped that over time? But we'll move on from that one. Poor source data. It's really important to remember that it is data driven. Poor data, you know, the old saying, garbage in, garbage out. It's the same with AI. And also the resistance by salespeople, because they're afraid about losing control and accountability. So, autonomy, loss of behavior, loss of self-determination. Human beings, we like self-determination. Status, really important. Relatedness, we like to relate with other human beings. And the other thing, as I've said already, is about the lack of understanding of how it works. And that's going to be some of the resistance from salespeople. They'd like to be in control. They like the autonomy of the job. Remember why people go into sales. They go into sales for lots of different reasons, but most of it, they like to feel the power and control of being there, and to be able to succeed successfully without being told or watched all the time. So we've got to very quickly move in leadership. I've got about 10 minutes left, I think, just to finish off to give us time for questions. So in the last sort of 10 minutes, just wanted to talk about the role of sales managers. You know, think about the role of sales managers. They are responsible for supervising and managing the end-to-end sales process, the pipeline, customer engagement, team performance. That is the definition of what they do. But if you think about it, sales managers, sales leaders are probably spend most of their time guiding sales performance and reviewing the sales pipeline. You know, most of us now have been around the dashboards for many years. You know, we've had dashboards on our computers. We've seen what the information is available. We look at trends. You know, that is well known, well documented, and well used. So AI can help sales managers providing analytics, but to increase accuracy and speed of the data created by the organizational system. It should move things faster, because that's the critical thing. Speed now is probably the thing that's changed. And I keep thinking back to 2000, which is only 21 years ago, and I keep thinking, what's changed in this world? Well, I think the thing is, it's about data, knowledge, speed of doing things, and the need to do things quicker than ever before, and people wanting more. So it goes on, thinking about sales management. It's assist in assessing performance through monitoring these dashboards. It can track the salespeople's performance in real time. Now, there's been lots of question marks over the years about using GPS tracking of salespeople and sales activities. Well, I think we all know that GPS is here to stay, and most truck companies have some form of GPS system. They can track trucks. You know, salespeople will be, unfortunately, you know, monitored, managed. That will cause degree of conflict, and it's something organizations are going to have to deal with to ensure that they keep attracting the best people. It should help sales managers, sales leaders guide underperforming salespeople by identifying who they are, benefit from coaching in the areas they need. Because, you know, I can remember when I started, you know, we've had a team of 10 salespeople. We had a sales trainer. You know, all those roles have vanished. It's all been passed down to the sales manager to do all these roles now. So AI should hopefully bring back time to allow for some of these skills. And of course, tracking the best salesperson's performance, helping key performance indicators, and ensuring that they have the resources they need to do the job most effectively. So, AI in charge. Now that's really one of those areas. It probably goes with my moral dilemma. You know, the AI boss, you know, the AI telling us what to do. It sounds scary. And I think, to be honest, it does feel scary. But, you know, because AI might be used to organize staff rotas, allocation of work, you know, the planning of your journey cycles, travel, everything you do. It really is one of those interesting ones. It can provide feedback on appraisal documents and dashboards. So, you know, we all do appraisals. You know, it probably will be a time when even HR are using AI to identify trends and needs within the workforce. And I've already said, you know, this should help with leadership tasks to monitor performance and aid with salary and promotion decisions. But the reality is AI alternative to is a good alternative to a really bad boss. Well, that's something you're going to have to work out yourself. I can't give you the answer to that. But sales leaders will have to still create a culture that embraces AI. Well, they will have to develop a culture to embrace AI. They need to hire the salespeople the best fit. They'll need to act as mentors and guides, both morally, and I said now more importantly, ethically as well. They'll need to build strong relationships with employees and customers, and they'll need to monitor relationships so that big sales are not lost in big data. And that's something you've got to be aware of, that it's a guide, but it doesn't guarantee success. As I said, gut feeling may still be an important element in developing sales leads and closing sales. So future challenges. It's a game changer. You know, the way they interact with the customers. One of the biggest challenges of salespeople, I think, will be learning to trust AI, learning to trust what it's telling you, learning to let go of the things that you've done in the past. Another one is about gaining management buy-in to support the investment in technology and training. So there is a role for senior management, top management in any AI rollout and in the management of the sales force. It's still not clear how tracking and analyzing sales conversations are going to work in the field setting. I've seen lots of examples of it working in an office, in a closed environment where everything is working perfectly. And you know, being out on the road, if you've ever been out on the road, the last thing that happens is things work seamlessly. There's always something that's going to get in the wrong place at the wrong time, even down to that train failing, breaking down at the last minute. You know, who knows? And then, you know, as I said, the ethical and moral considerations of tracking both salespeople's activities so closely, but also tracking your customers so closely. You know, there has been lots of arguments that AI can analyze people's behaviors. You know, there is a big supermarket in the UK, which is effectively collecting data on its customers all the time, claims it can identify when somebody's pregnant before they know by their buying habits. Now, I'm not going to buy into this one, but that's what they say. And, you know, so that brings in those moral and ethical considerations when you're thinking about selling to somebody. You know, where does it start and stop? You've got to think about that. It's about generating value for the customer. You know, it's the contribution to sales profession to value creation. It's about exploring information. There's lots of value for the customer as well as the selling organization. There are lots and lots of benefits on both sides. So customers should see, the buyers should see benefits from AI. It shouldn't be a one-way street. It has to make their life easier or they're not going to engage with it. And like I said, in the past, there's been lots of examples of that. And so it brings me nicely, I'm a little bit early, I had a little bit more time, but more time for questions. So just to finish off by saying, the AI will take time to evolve. I said 5 years ago, wasn't even talking about it. Talking about it in 21. The next 10 years is going to be interesting. What will the next 50 years brings? Well, I think if I knew that, I would know what to invest in today. But we need to be aware of that time is changing and life is changing all the time. I personally would be very surprised if it ever totally replaces face-to-face interactions. As I said, people like to interact with people, not machines. There will still be buyers, there'll still be sellers, there'll still be organizations at different levels in their own life cycle, small startups, small, medium-sized enterprises, large companies, corporations, multinationals. There's going to be companies at different points in their own life cycle. But it does offer many benefits to salespeople by helping them to work smarter and provide more management information and replace repetitive tasks so they can spend more time in front of the customer. They can use that $1,000 to $5,000 to sit in front of a customer more effectively. They can use that time. Somebody said to me, you don't want to sit in front of a customer and spend the first 20 minutes explaining who you are, the next 20 minutes sorting out problems that existed before, leaving you, if you're lucky, 5 minutes to sell before you say goodbye. Half an hour. And, you know, and if, of course, you work in the medical profession, in pharmaceuticals or anything like that, you might only get 7 minutes. You know, you've used your time effectively, and AI can help by making sure you focus on the things you need to focus on, not the things you don't need to focus on. So that's brought me to the end of my little introduction to AI in sales. Haven't got all the answers yet. It will come clear. That will clear over time. But remember, not all companies are the same, and remember, whatever AI system you buy, invest in, use, it has to be fit for purpose. And that looking under the bonnet could be really important. Anyway, that's me finished. So I'm going to stop sharing now and pass it back to questions in the sort of last 10 minutes, really. So hope you can all see me now.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Kenneth, for that very fascinating talk. And the years sort of seem to peel away as I read many of the terms which many of my erstwhile bosses would discuss with me. Of course, the term AI would be missing because, as all of us know, it's something that has been in vogue just over the last 3 or 4 years, and the pace is certainly increasing. And we do have a bunch of questions on the chat box, so I'll pick them up one by one, and with your permission, request you to answer them. Okay. Can we start, Professor?
Yes, help me say yes. Far away, okay. Yes, please.
Great, great. Okay, so here goes. Hello, sir. I'm Aditi Srivastava from MBA 2. So she is a student from SIBM Pune, one of my students. Sir, currently the AI systems like the recommendation engines become better over time as they gather data. So how much time should we give AI systems to actually analyze their performance?
I think this is around that question I always say about is what is big data? Because I do know that I see some organizations trying to use AI on data sets which are probably not, well, they're definitely not big enough for what they're doing. And that's the problem. I'm sorry, I can't give you an answer, a clear answer. but I would think that you're probably going to be collecting between 3 and 5 years data to really be effective about customer performance, to actually identify their trends and their buying habit. Now, saying that, all organizations should have some form of MIS systems. It's how effectively they can transfer those into an AI system. If they can transfer that data, it will speed things up hugely. And actually, they might be able to do it within 3 to 6 months by the time they transfer the data and make sure it's all working and cleaned any of it up. If they don't have that, I think it's a 3 to 5 year process. So I'm sorry, I'm not being very positive here. And if anybody AI company out there who's selling AI, I would be happy to debate this with them further about what is big data and what do you actually need to be able to make decisions.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, Professor. The next question is from Paul Baines. So he asks, what scope do you think AI has to replace the sales and admission processes that universities use to recruit students?
Paul, hello. Nice to hear from you. I think it has lots of potential, because actually that's the one thing it should be able to do quite quickly, actually, in those things. Because if you think about it, we all have the type of student that we are looking for. So it would be quite easy, I think, to develop quite a clear picture of a student and their qualifications and their background, and some of the questions which we'll ask on application forms to help us to identify their suitability in the first state, beyond just simple measure of grades. Now, the other thing it can do, which it should be able to do, is actually identify markets which are actually responding to your offer. Now, that's going to be quite an interesting one, because actually we are all making different offers globally, and those offers are really important to students. And it's about ensuring that the offer is aligned with the student's needs. And actually AI could help you to identify the markets which are having the biggest impact on. And I think that's where AI is going to come. So it's about selecting the students and identifying the markets where you are actually having the most effects in. So yeah, no, that's going to be exciting for universities, and it's going to be interesting for higher education generally about what their investment is going to be in AI going forward. So thank you, Paul.
So just a data point to share with Professor and everyone else on our seminar today. As we speak, we at SIBM Pune are actually in the midst of our admissions process. And very interestingly, one of the tools that we are using to profile candidates and their suitability is a psychometric profiling through handwriting analysis, graphology. And that kind of technology lends itself to programming into an AI engine.
It does, yeah. Very much so, yeah. Those sort of things, yeah, it lends itself. And as I said, it is a language based. Yes. You know, when you interview somebody, you know, the responses can be quite important. And when they phone up to ask questions about the courses, those questions could be quite important in finding out if that is a student or a potential student that you should be focusing resources on. Because actually what this is about is using limited resources. You know, I wish we all had big pots of money, but we haven't, and it's about ensuring that the resources. It's back to the stuff that we taught right from the beginning about segmentation, yes, about targeting, about positioning ourselves. You know, they're all important, and they stay important. It's still why we talk about it today.
Absolutely, absolutely. Professor, we have a challenge question from Euripides Lucas, who asks, most of the capabilities you mentioned require just simple analytics, aggregate numbers in dashboards, and not artificial intelligence from past data. So how can artificial intelligence machine learning be really used?
I'm sorry, I thought I made the point across that one. It's about analyzing the bigger market. So yes, you are right. You can, dashboards will tell you about performance and etc. But it's not necessarily, can't tell you about what's happening in the wider world. So, what are you using at the moment to identify that a big contract's been won? What are you using to actually find out what's happening in the marketplace? Are you just relying on hearsay, somebody actually, analyzing newspaper cuttings, looking on the internet. Those are the sort of things AI can do, and they can do really effectively. And they will help with decision making, because they'll know, do you have a relationship with them? What's been your potential to win business with them? And it moves, I said, away from your views about it to actually trying to put numbers on success and knowing how much to invest. As I said, winning orders cost money, and it's about that use of money effectively. And about and the other thing is it can help you do is, of course, is maybe identify who the prime movers and decision makers in it are. And that's something to think about as well.
Thank you. The next question is from Jose Hernandez Perez. Regarding the issue of information versus knowledge and also AI in charge, my concern is about the quality of the algorithms and data collected that may not allow us to take the right decisions. Do you know, are there any research about it? And is there any regulatory body that can oversee this?
Right. Currently, there is no regulatory body I know of. And that was my comment about garbage in, garbage out, using a very old terminology when we're talking about statistics. And actually, if you think about it, it's bigger statistics. Now, as I said, the big problem is, what's a big data set? If you speak to some of the big analytical companies, they're talking trillions of sets of data that they can help analyze it. Now, most companies do not have trillions of sets of data, but they do have the trends. They do have the knowledge about the customer. They do have customer insights. They do have the knowledge that salespeople, etc., has collected over the years. And it's the bringing together of those things which AI can do, which not necessarily, but you can do by eyeballing your data yourself. I must admit, going back to my early days on, statistics, the first thing you did in statistics, you eyeballed the data. Yeah, well, that's fine if you've only got 136 respondents and 26 data points. We should be talking about sets which are, 100, 200, 300 times bigger. You can't do that. AI, machine learning can, will, does. And that's the thing to remember. It's about removing that gut instinct, those gut thoughts, into identifying the bigger important factors.
Great. We have a question from Kate Nugent. So Kate mentions, from my point of view, except big companies, the majority of small and medium enterprises still have small data sets to analyze. So they would not be able to really deploy AI, and the investment to collect big data is very expensive for them. So what and how can SMEs deploy AI technology and innovations to boost their sales?
I think at the moment, it's something that you've got to keep looking at. I'm not going to say that small and medium-sized enterprises should be doing it at the moment. Now, what I suspect there will be going forward is much more data centers, where data is going to be shared between parties. So a number of companies will collect it, it will go into a pot, and they share it. And I suspect what will happen is that the bodies, the trade bodies, etc., will be part of that decision making. So if you're a member of a community of organizations, you will start sharing data. It will be collected, it will be cleaned, etc., and all parties can use that data as part of membership. Now, I see that's how small and medium-sized enterprises will get access to it to start with. But you are quite right, with limited data about your own organization, because of having small data sets, it will be difficult. But I said, but it will change over time, because we'll get to know AI will do more and we'll be able to make more decisions. Because, of course, remember, it's collecting lots and lots of information. So even though you have a small data set, it may have a big data set to pull the key things from. But I said, at the moment, we're not there. But I think that will come, that trade bodies will start collecting and sharing information, and the AI systems will learn more about what's happening in the bigger wide world. And then it will become really accessible for small and medium-sized enterprises.
Thank you. There's a question from Rui Liu. So Rui asks, did AI do AI algorithms get proved to be accurate and effective widely in sales? Have you found some evidence?
Sorry, can you say that question again? Sorry.
So Rui is asking whether AI algorithms have been proved to be accurate and effective in sales. Have you found any evidence?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. Yes, that's a tricky one. Right. There is no research I know of. There's lots and lots of people who say that it has been successful and they're using it, but of course they're not prepared to share that knowledge yet. I suspect that will come available. I think I will push it back to a previous system when companies started using CRM systems. When they first started off, there was a real question mark about did they offer return on the investment. I think without any doubt now that any company who's not using a CRM system or something from one of the proprietary ones are losing out. And I think that's what will happen with AI. But it is, as I said, 3 years ago, I would never even thought of giving, or 4 years ago, even giving this talk, because I'd have said, well, AI exists. How are we going to use it? Don't know. When are we going to use it? Don't know. I think it's one of those at the moment. We know a lot more. Keep watching, because we're going to learn a lot more coming in the future, and it's going to be there all the time. I think when COVID sort of settles down, I think you'll be finding lots and lots of organisations have been using AI during this period to help stay in business, and suddenly a lot more knowledge will come out of that. Sorry, I haven't got an answer for you. I wish I did. I might, I might not be sitting here today otherwise.
Absolutely, absolutely. Professor, I can't resist asking you this question as a former sales and marketing person myself. So CRM, customer relationship management, that's so important subject in sales. Yes. And we use it for mining tons of information about external customers, Siebel, Salesforce.com. But what are your thoughts around using AI and CRM to really take great decisions about our sales force? If I'm a company with a sales force of 500 or 1,000 salespeople, what are your thoughts on using AI to manage that sales force?
I think, you're right. CRM's a starting point. AI is the part which is going to analyze what CRM's turning out. CRM still, it can give you lots of insights, but I think the reality is a lot of data in AI is still not being interrogated in the way that we need to. And I think the interrogation is the thing that AI is going to do. So it's about, the problem as always is, I always say to people, you've got to design a system which does what people want it to do. I think that was my problem with early CRM systems. We didn't know what was happening under the bonnet. We didn't know how it was dealing with the data. We didn't know what it was telling us. And it's took us nearly 20 years now, of understanding CRM to understand how it works. And now, because we've understood how CRM systems work a lot more, I think we've got a much bigger a starting point for AI now to be able to understand. But I said it's not about data, it's about analytics to help with decision making. And that's the thing that AI should be able to give us, where CRM has been in the time a bit of a blunt instrument, much cleverer now, much more intuitive, and indeed. AI will take that the next step.
Indeed. Professor, as we approach the top of the hour, I can see our co-host, Professor Yogesh Dwivedi, has logged on. Professor Yogesh, your thoughts? We had a fascinating talk and a lively Q&A. Your thoughts, Professor Yogesh?
Thank you so much, Professor Bhattacharya, and thank you so much, Ken, for being here. And obviously, sales is a very specific application of AI. So we are really happy that this part is also covered in this seminar series. I'm so sorry, I got to go in a meeting which I couldn't avoid. As we all know that so many meetings nowadays going on that is so difficult to find time. And this one came up later after organizing this this seminar, so I couldn't avoid it. No comment from my side because I couldn't really hear the talk. but I'm sure that I have heard Ken in past, and I'm sure people would have enjoyed the talk. And I just hope that we look forward to have even more insight in future events from Ken about sales and AI. Things are moving, obviously, not just in sales, in various areas. If you look at the application of AI in various domains, every day we are hearing some new applications of AI. And as Ken said earlier, that after pandemic settle down, we will see actually big kind of visibility of how AI being used during this period, and how actually, and then it will be more prominent actually, and will be more prominently used by organizations. So I think more to come. The purpose for us to of this seminar series is to continue the conversation, continue talking about AI related issues, so that we can spread more general awareness. You know, many of us actually don't know much or at all in academia and also outside academia. So little bit of general awareness being created through these kind of events. And I'm very grateful to all the speakers for their contribution for that. That's all I would like to say. And thank you so much, Professor Bhattacharya, for, you know, you're constantly coordinating these seminar, you know, in very, very efficient and warmth way. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. In fact, there's a very venerable UK brand called Tesco, which has created a huge success in South Korea. They are the #1 selling supermarket chain there, and they use, I'm sure, tons of AI in how they segment their customers. And Professor, are you familiar with Skyscanner UK?
Sorry, say again?
Skyscanner UK?
Oh, yes. So yes, yeah, there's lots of them out there. But anyway, we've gone past the time, and I'm not rushing off, but I just want to say that thank you very much for inviting me. I've really enjoyed it, and it really gave me an opportunity to think about AI in sales again and actually do some research about it again, which was really good for me. So thank you very much for inviting me. Hopefully next time we'll be able to meet face to face.
Indeed,
and we can actually talk about it more fully. But thank you very much for the invitation for everybody and everybody for
pleasure is entirely ours. Pleasure is entirely ours. Thank you for a absolutely insightful talk, and it triggers lots of food for thought and hopefully some research actions as well, especially from us faculty members on the call. I would like to thank Professor Yogesh Dwivedi, Professor Ramakrishnan Raman, our co-hosts, all our dear participants for their fascinating questions. It was indeed a very lively Q&A, and I would be remiss in my duties if I didn't thank two teams from SIBM Pune, our IT infrastructure team led by Mr. Rajesh Bagewadi for a very smooth hosting infrastructure today, and our student team, they are called as iSmart, Professor Kenneth, and they have been listening in on our conversation, and within a few minutes they'll be sharing a few thank you e-frames, photographs, hopefully of you in action and maybe me as well. So with that, just as a small token of our appreciation, that I'll just kind of share. We've got our next seminar on the 3rd of March. Professor Ronnie Medaglia from Copenhagen Business School, Denmark, and he will talk about AI in the public sector. So stay tuned. That will be the 7th seminar in our 15 seminar series. Professor Kenneth, once again, thank you very much, and have a very good afternoon. And
thank you very much.
We shall meet someday.
A lovely meeting you all. I wish it was face to face rather than virtually.
Indeed.
I know. We want to repeat the Swansea visit again sometime.
Yes, love to.